Have you heard about the SAVE Act? I've been seeing a lot of misinformation and misleading information about the SAVE Act, so I just want to clarify a few things for you. So the SAVE Act was passed by the House as H.R. 22, and this is not a voter ID bill, and it does not make voting by non-citizens illegal because that is already part of the law. Instead, what it is it requires proof of citizenship to vote, but it's addressing a problem that doesn't exist. So this article from Reuters points out that the Brennan Center found only 30 instances of non-citizens voting in the 2016 election. And even the Conservative Heritage Foundation, when you search their database, you can find only 24 instances of non-citizens voting between the elections of 2003 and 2023. The Bipartisan Policy Center points out in this chart, even the government's own data from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services found that in 2025, only 0.04% of non-U.S. citizens voted. And so none of these are numbers that would determine the outcome of an election. And in many cases, they're caught, and so their vote is wiped from the records anyway. So it's trying to address a problem that doesn't exist, but it would cause all sorts of problems in this year's election. By requiring proof of citizenship in order to register to vote, that means in most states, that does not include a driver's license because your driver's license does not provide proof of citizenship. It would require either an up-to-date passport or a birth certificate in many cases in order to register to vote. So the Bipartisan Policy Center found that 9% of eligible voters do not have access to proof of citizenship. 52% do not have an unexpired passport with their current legal name. That's important because if you got married and you changed your last name, you would need an updated passport. So that's going to affect more women than men. 11% of registered voters do not have access to their birth certificate. And this would go into effect in this year's election and cause all sorts of chaos and difficulties in the election. Another thing pointed out by Walter Olson in an article for the Cato Institute titled Federal Power Grab on Voting Still Flunks Basic Civics Test. It would abolish mail-in voting, which is many states out west. Because they're so rural, it's difficult to have polling locations. So they do mail-in voting only. It would abolish that for this year's election, which means they would have to scramble to figure out how to run an election in a way that they are not used to doing. And voters would have to figure out where to go and how to do it. In many cases, they'll be far away from their polling location as well because these states are so rural. And in that same article, Walter Olson points out, I think what's really behind this, he says this would give the federal government new powers of prosecution and discretionary regulation that would be highly susceptible to misuse, as well as empowering busybody or ideologically motivated private citizens to sue. So this is a recipe for chaos if this were to pass and be required in this year's election. So Senator Thune said that the Senate will vote on that. It has already passed the House. So if you oppose this bill, it's a good time to call your senator and let them know how you feel. If you appreciate this content, please go to AmericanValues.org for more information.